You want to talk about my personal association with Moe?
Yeah.
How I met him and all that kind of
Just-
stuff?
Okay, so we're just talking Moe.
Yeah. Single points.
Okay, single playing. Sound like I know what I'm doing, single playing.
I mean, he may say something about Moe that I don't agree with, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here, you want me to hold the club? Or...
He's got the tough job. You got to hold that for all this time.
Everybody wants to, yeah, and I never correct them. It's too much work.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, how are you, Barry?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
I'll make it up.
All right, here we go. I'm slated.
You bring up Moe Norman, and anyone who plays golf has heard of him. Even to this day, they don't really even know the Masters story or the other stuff, but they know this swing that was too good to be true. But I don't know much more about it.
We always heard that him and Ben Hogan, they owned their swings. They had the best, swings in the world, the best, ball striking ability. Anyone who saw him hit the ball, were inspired.
His golf swing, he thoroughly owned it. And, I believe it is the most efficient, simple way to hit a golf ball ever devised.
Took away pieces of the swing and made it simple. Made the most direct strike in the game with the fewest moving parts.
Purity of technique.
He wasn't into the looks of the swing. He was more into, hey, what did the ball do?
He's not like anybody else. And I think especially now you look on tour, the swings, you can tell golfers apart by their swings, but the swings look more alike than they did 20 years ago, 30 years ago, certainly 50 years ago, when golfers were kind of trying to discover decent golf swings, and they were all coming at it in different ways. Moe came at it in a really different way.
Moe's internal model was, I'll figure out how to do it myself, and then I'll have it, I'll own it, I'll be able to do that. And because he probably wasn't good at acquiring information through the visual and auditory methods, which means reading or listening, he was able to acquire expertise quicker and with greater accuracy by feeling it, in my observation of him. And so when he did that, once that was stored, he was able to remember it inside of his body.
Moe trained himself muscle memory. That's it.
Let your body memorize your swing.
So I think Moe learned the perfect way. I think he learned from trial and error. He learned from experimentation. He learned from hitting lots of golf balls. That's the way he learned it. Well, and thank God he did, because he figured it out.
I've never seen him stretch. I honestly, he got out of his car and started hitting balls. Yeah.
He did everything automatic, like a machine. And a machine would break down before Moe would. I would bet on Moe before the machine.
He's the closest thing to a hitting machine I've ever seen. If they want an iron Byron, they should be looking at his swing.
To stand there on the tee and watch Moe hit the golf ball, first of all, when he stood over it, you would think, how is he going to generate enough power with this thing sort of way back? Then you looked at his body and you saw the powerful arms, the powerful legs, the powerful rear end, to be perfectly honest with you, and you could see where this sense of power was going to come from. And there was a fluidity to it. There was no kind of anger in the swing. There was a tempo to it. There was a lot of athleticism to it, which I think people don't appreciate.
Every ball he hit looked the same. With hardly any curvature, dead straight. And he made it look so simple. He made it look so easy.
A great description, I think, is effortless. I mean, it doesn't seem like he was hitting the ball. It seemed like he was just swinging through air, and the ball just kind of got in the way. And to me, again, to see it go and to see it sail and to see the control he could have with this swing is just mesmerizing.
He was obsessed 100% of the time, all day, every day, with this singular objective of making this club face, this instrument, arrive at this dimpled spheroid in a square position. To him, it was the end all. It was the one objective that he had, that he lived and died and breathed for, his whole life.
Well, first of all, when you see him, the first thing you noticed, or at least the first thing I noticed, is how far he stood from the golf ball. His arms so outstretched,
There was, if there was his left arm, there was his right arm, just put the hand, and he stood so far from the golf ball. And, as long as he didn't sort of drag the club in, he was going to be, on just such a good plane. I didn't know the word plane then. To me, a plane was something that flew in the air. It had nothing to do with the golf swing. But you could see it seemed like he was going back and through. And I felt immediately, instinctively, not that I could put it into words, that he was, that was one of the sources of his accuracy, of his precision.
You start with the club behind the golf ball. You have a wider stance. The motion looks more like, sort of like a hockey slap shot, right? Where the rest of us are trying to do wrist shots.
Moe, I remember Moe doing this. He'd put his club down and he'd throw like a quarter back there. Or he'd throw a loonie back there. And he'd do this. He'd go, take the club and put it over the quarter, right? Because that's his swing. Everyone else is going, right?
Well, he would say the club went back 22 inches and came through 44 inches. Long's extension in golf. These are Moe's words.
Moe, why do you put the club a foot behind the ball, foot and a half? Oh, I'm low, I'm in my turn already. That's why. Everybody wants to swing low in the turn. So that's why he had it on to the inside of the ball and a foot behind it slightly, His shoulders were already slightly turned. I mean,
makes sense.
That's what he'd say to you.
Moe always started his driver about 6 inches behind the golf ball rather than right up close, because he knew that first 6 inches, when you take that back, that's very key as to whether you're going to come inside or go outside or where the path of the club is going to go.
What he's saying is correct. I mean, in golf, if you can keep the club face square through impact down the intended line, that is the game. Nothing else. That is it. And that was his focus.
It was, went back in one plane and down in the same plane. And he had what he considered less hands in his swing than any golfer on the planet.
Moe would put the golf club in the palm of his right hand. Moe would always say that he's the only one in the world that plays through the golf course. The rest of us are playing around it. There's one of those things I didn't know what he meant when he said it. It took me years to figure it out. But by putting the golf club in the palm of your right hand, it's on the same line as your right forearm. So wherever the right forearm goes, the club face goes. Where we grip the golf club on our fingers, so there's an extra twist and or turn in our golf swings that Moe didn't have. So he had more of a direct line of influence from the ball to the club face to his hand to his brain. And I think that needs to be dwelled on a little bit more, because I have a suspicion that that's one of the biggest reasons why he could do what he did.
He was always target oriented. He said, swing at the target, you'll go there. I'd say, Moe, when you hit the ball, I say, you keep your foot down all the time and then you lift it up at the end. He felt if you kept it down, you couldn't turn as much and you'd be parallel with the target with the club and your hips at the same time. Where he said if you turned a lot, you would spin and go off the target line. And that proposal is absolutely correct.
Yeah, can't hit it offline if I want. I can't hit it offline if I want.
What iron's that?
4.
He went and found a different way, or his own way, however you want to characterize it, to get the golf ball onto the club face at square. And by trial, by repeat, by dedication, this method proved to be perfect. It worked. It's as good as anyone has ever hit the golf ball. I don't think you can look up or down or past or present and find anyone who hit the ball in the center of the club face more often than Moe Norman did. And to me, what's a better tribute for a golfer?
Because his swing was as pure as it was, he made it seem completely effortless, and yet he got this extraordinary distance from his swing speed, from his club head speed, because he struck the ball so perfectly, with such efficiency, with so little side spin. The ball just took off like a knuckleball, just took off like an arrow.
And the finish to the swing, to me, was the most glorious part, where his hands were way up high and the club was reaching up, and he would stand there and kind of look out at it. And that pose at the finish, if I was ever to get a tattoo, I think I would get that pose of Moe holding the finish perfectly. I think I would get that right across my heart.
Moe, when I look back on it, even though he looked unique, he wasn't. He shifted his weight to his right leg very nicely. He shifted his weight to his left leg from the ground up like you're going to throw it very nicely. His hands and arms on the club might have looked a little bit awkward. I always thought to myself, it's going to be hard for his hands to fine-tune his good motion. Again, this is retrospect, looking back at it. However, because he hit 1,000 balls a day, his hands were spectacular. And that's why he could paint a shot, because when he, when you hit 1,000 balls a day, your motion's going to be pretty repetitive.
And I really don't understand why more people don't use this method.
Well, anytime I get that question, why doesn't anybody on tour swing like Moe?
I think it's a question, Moe hit the ball so well and so easily and got so much, so many yards out of less effort that you would think that everybody would try to do it. And I tried to do it.
Just remember, this is a country club game. People don't want to be too different.
Why don't pros on tour do it?
People are afraid, especially really high level athletes, afraid of changing something up because they put so much work into it.
What professional really has time to completely start over?
There were some that he felt were similar or had things in common. Lee Trevino was one. Paul Azinger maybe was another. Bryson DeChambeau that you see now, who has a different swing. But I think it's very hard for an athlete or anybody to be really different from whatever the conventional way is to do something. Malcolm Gladwell has written about this and talked about shooting free throws underhanded in basketball, and it's a better way to shoot free throws. People are more accurate when they do it.
Arms hang down, my knees are bent, I'm relaxed, cock the wrists, follow through.
People who've had terrible trouble shooting free throws have done it that way. But when you do it, people laugh at you. Why do you do it? Why are you doing it like that? They look like the 8-year-old on the playground. And so even if you believe that this is a better way to do it, it's very hard to make yourself do it. And it's the kind of thing too where if you decide you are going to look different, and you work on it, and then you have to go do it in public. And then the first time it goes wrong in public, people go, well, you see how stupid you were to do that, because look, you just hit a crappy shot. Whereas you can go out with your regular swing and shank 10 in a row, and people just, well, having a bad day. But unless you really have this Moe Norman-like fortitude that you're going to stick with it no matter what, the first time it goes wrong, you go, okay, I give up, I quit. It really takes a lot of courage to do something like that looks that different from what everybody else does, to defy conventional wisdom in that way. And every now and then somebody comes along who does it, and you think, oh, why didn't everybody do that? But it's true in every sport, and techniques converge. And then when somebody does do something differently, Bryson DeChambeau, current example, it really stands out.
Moe lived and breathed golf. He lived through the game. He always said that he didn't play around a golf course the way everybody else did. He played right through it. He saw things in kind of a straight-on, linear way, if you will. He saw straight lines in golf, and I think he kind of proceeded through life that way. He didn't have his imagination cooking, how can I market this, how can I do that? There was no guile in the man. He never thought like, how can I get into the Hall of Fame? How can I get recognition? No, it was absolutely pure, his approach. It was all about hitting that golf ball.
I've always hit it good, and I believed in my way. I did it my way.